Good evening, everyone. It is Thursday, December the 5th, 2019. It is currently 8:08 p.m. Central Time. Well, I decided to hit the go live button and do a live broadcast because just a few minutes ago, I heard a disturbing news report. And I want to share this news report with everyone because it really ties into something I said and an episode that I recorded maybe earlier this week, may have been last week. I don't remember the exact day, but I talked about something that is happening in the church, and I made this statement that it's not a church issue, it's a societal issue. That the issue is not just, oh, this is happening in this particular church or this particular denomination. This is a religion problem. This is a church problem. I wanted everyone to understand, no. This problem is a societal problem, and the church exists within society. And even though we are to be in the world and not of it, let's be honest, what is happening in society and happening in culture comes into the church. And sometimes the church likes to pretend, no, it's not going to come inside our church, but it does. Let me remind you of the book of 1 Corinthians, which is located in the New Testament. 1 Corinthians is a letter written to a church that is located in a city, and the city was influencing the church more than the church was influencing the city. Not only is that the problem of the church of Corinth, and 1 Corinthians is written to try to correct that problem, it is the problem of every church and every generation. The church exists within society, and that society, in the societal problems becomes the problems of the church, because as a Christian, you live in the world and you struggle with you not being influenced more by culture than you are supposed to be influencing culture. It's the way that we're supposed to be salt. We're supposed to be light. We're supposed to be the influencers. But what we find is the world influences us, and we end up loving the world, acting like the world, becoming a friend with the world. This is the struggle of Christianity. So this news report is going to indicate the societal problem that is also evident in certain ways within the church as well. All right. So I just want to make sure that you understand why I'm playing this, because there is a theological point to this, and we'll talk about it in just a minute. But listen to this report. It is somewhat disturbing, and it does deal with things of a sexual nature. So, if you have small children, you don't want to have to get into the discussion. You may want to move them away. So here it is. This report. I started getting all the notifications on my iPad, I don't know, a couple hours ago. It was one notification after another notification after another notification. I think this one got as many notifications as all the notifications I got earlier today about the Democrats wanting to move forward to write articles of impeachment against President Trump. I got all kinds of notifications about that. And then later on, this one became kind of the one that dominated most of my notifications. So you may have already seen it, but listen carefully to this. Here we go.
How safe is your Uber ride? That question has dogged the company for years, as complaints have piled up from passengers and drivers alleging they were sexually assaulted inside an Uber. Now Uber is revealing the scale of these complaints for the first time. A new report tallies the number of sexual assaults, deaths, and fatal crashes that happened during Uber rides in the U.S. in 2017 and 2018. NPR's tech correspondent Shannon Bond has more.
The numbers and the details are disturbing. In 2 years, Uber received 5,981 reports of serious sexual assault in the U.S. They range from allegations of unwanted touching and kissing to rape. The report covers rides in the U.S. only in 2017 and 2018. As shocking as the numbers are, the incidents make up far less than 1% of the 2.3 billion rides people in the U.S. took on Uber in those 2 years.
At the scale that Uber operates, we're going to see both the good and the bad that happens in society because we're operating so many trips every single day.
Tony West is Uber's chief legal officer. He says Uber is so big, the problems it's facing are not unique to Uber.
And one of the unfortunate but sad truths is that sexual assault, sexual violence is far more prevalent in American society than a lot of people recognize.
The report is a window into a long-standing problem for ride-hailing companies, from Uber and Lyft in the U.S. to Didi in China and Ola in India. And we should note Uber is among NPR's financial sponsors. These apps have made it really easy to get around cities, but they've also come under intense scrutiny for how they screen their drivers, handle complaints of harm, and remove offenders from their platforms. Uber's data shows that both passengers and drivers are at risk. In fact, passengers were accused of sexual assault in nearly half the claims. The report doesn't present a complete picture. It doesn't count other types of sexual misconduct, like masturbation, asking for sex, or verbal threats of assault. However, in the 2 years the report covers, the rate of incidents per ride went down in every category. Tony West says that's encouraging.
So I feel comfortable that Uber is a very safe mode of transportation. I think the data in this report actually indicates that as well.
The report also covers deaths involving Uber rides. During those 2 years, 19 people were killed in physical assaults in connection with an Uber ride, and 107 people died in crashes involving Uber cars. By comparison, 74,000 people in total died on U.S. roads in the same period, according to federal data. With scrutiny of its safety record intensifying, Uber has rolled out new features to prevent problems and make it easier to report them. There's now a panic button in its app that passengers and drivers can use to call 911. And Uber's testing out additional safety measures, such as audio or video recording rides. And the company wants to share the names of drivers it has banned for serious safety violations with other companies. That could help prevent a driver accused of groping, for example, from simply switching over to driving for Lyft. Cindy Southworth of the National Network to End Domestic Violence has been advising Uber about safety since 2015. She says sharing names of banned drivers will help address
sexual misconduct, sexual abuse within, say, the Catholic Church. You hear some of those same problems, right? Okay, this person did something, and instead of, them doing what was necessary to permanently remove them and let everyone know, they just move them to another parish or just move them somewhere else. Well, here, in some cases, Uber can't release the names of the individuals who did these things, so they can just literally leave and go to another job doing the exact same job, giving people rides, even though they may be sexually assaulting people or harassing people. It's the same. Now, I know it's not exactly the same because within, say, the Catholic Church, they're in charge, so they could clearly remove the priest from going to any other parish. But, okay, what could they do with that information to stop that priest from going and getting a job somewhere else where he could harm someone? All I'm saying is this moving, not letting people know, these kinds of issues show up everywhere. And please note, listen carefully in that news report that you just heard. If you remember correctly, if you need to go back and listen to it again. But the executives for Uber, the ones speaking, the spokesman for Uber, was saying that this is a societal problem. This is a societal problem. It's not just an Uber problem. This is a sexual assault in America. This is an American problem. And the same thing is true when it comes to the church. It's not just a church problem. It's a sexual assault problem, a sexual harassment problem in society. Uber makes that claim, but sometimes when the report happens about churches, that never really sometimes gets brought up in some of the reports. Not in some it does, but in some it does not. It's just like the Catholic Church has a problem. And sometimes they'll point to celibacy. That's the problem. Or it's an all-male priesthood. That's the problem. And it's like, no, it's a societal problem. It's not a doctrinal problem. It's a societal problem. And again, the number of reports coming about sexual problems within the church, they're disturbing, they're horrible. And you want to fix the issue, but what we have to realize is it's a societal problem first, right? And when it's a societal problem, it will become a church problem. All right, so let's ask just a very important question, all right? Why do you think? Now, I would have to look at the overall numbers of sexual assault, sexual harassment, sexual, abuse of children. I would have to take all of those different categories, look at all of those numbers, and say, in total, has the number of these issues risen in society over the last 10 years? I at least, just circumstantial, just from the surface, it appears to me that it has been rising over the last 10 years. And there may be some ups and downs within those 10 years, but I think if you look at 10 years, say, let's go from 2019 to, 2000 or to 1999. Go 2000 to 2019, just that 9-year period. And you look at the previous 9 years, has it increased overall? I at least my thought process is it has. Maybe it hasn't, but that's my feeling. Now, the issue is if it has increased, let's just stress the if. If it has, why is it increasing? Why is it increasing within society? And one could argue that society has adopted in many ways a moral relativism. You say something is wrong, I say something is right. You can't, it's wrong for you, but that doesn't make it wrong for me. If it's right for me, it doesn't necessarily make it right for you. And a very moral relativistic philosophy has entered in society. That is just a fact. Relativism has become a major philosophical driving force within our society. Well, once you get to moral relativism, then that means there is no ultimate standard of morality, and immorality will begin to increase. Well, some people say, well, immorality is okay as long as it doesn't hurt anyone. But once you throw out a moral standard, then you get kind of, I don't know if you're familiar with this phrase, everyone doing what is right in their own eyes, and you get some major problems, okay? I cannot say dogmatically, but I think it has to be, when society starts doing things that you just can't understand what's going on, at least you have to ask, it becomes a moral question. Is sexual harassment immoral? Well, some people say, well, it's illegal. I understand the legal argument, but it's a moral argument as well. If people don't have a sense of morality, right? What difference is there, a law or not a law? Because they could argue that the law is immoral, right? If they're making up their own morality. So I think we have to at least ask that morality, that people's view of morality has become very influenced by relativism. I think everyone can agree on that. And as a result, what are the consequences that begin to show up in society? If society embraces moral relativism, what are the consequences Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in the world in which you live? That's the way to state it. If moral relativism is the driving philosophical influence, how does that show up in society? Are you not going to see a rise of immorality to some level? Because you don't even have a definition of what's moral. I think that's an issue. Now, once moral relativism begins to infiltrate the culture, moral relativism will creep into the church. Now, the church has to fight against it by saying, no, there's absolute truth, absolute morality, and that is in the Bible. But that way of thinking creeps into the minds of people. Now, you would think that the church could stand against it, but I'm telling you, listen, so that's the first thing, moral relativism, all right? We have to combat that, and we just have to acknowledge that in society. I think that's an issue. I think we have to agree on that. Now, are there other societal issues that could possibly contribute to the increase of these kinds of sexual issues? We could probably do a lot of speculation, but I'll leave it with the moral relativism. I'll leave it there for now. Okay, we can come back to this later. Now, within the church, I think we have to acknowledge when we see things happening in society that we have to address them acknowledge the reality of it and not pretend that somehow we're immune, that somehow when we walk into that church, that the world stays outside. It never has. It never will. We have to be more aware and accept the fact that, hey, these things are happening in society. It's going to happen in the church. And you can pretend all day. Sometimes you see this with Christian parents. Christian parents like, my child would never. My child would never. And sometimes it's sad because it's the parent saying, my child would never, that everyone else, sometimes even in the church, is kind of leaning over in the pew, rolling their eyes, going, if only they knew. Because everyone in the church knows that their child is doing and thinking and saying the very things that they say my child would never. Sometimes the church operates like that. Our people would never. Well, our people can, because our people are depraved sinners. If David could murder, commit adultery, and all the things he did, and he was considered a man after God's own heart, you can. I can. And we've got to acknowledge that. And societal issues become our issues. Pornography, we could say, is obviously a societal thing, right? It's everywhere within society. Pornography is everywhere readily available. Are we going to pretend that it's not a problem in the church? That the people who walk through the doors on a Sunday, that there are not all kinds of people in that church who looked at pornography, maybe even the night before or that week? And those people who are looking at porn go from teenagers to the married men sitting there with their families? Do we acknowledge that? Now, the Uber situation, again, I just found it interesting that when you listen to them speak, it's kind of like, well, hey, this is a societal problem. It's not just an Uber problem. In fact, some of our numbers went down, so we're doing pretty good. And compared to how many rides we get, we're doing pretty good. Now, they're not obviously diminishing the fact that if one is, obviously they would acknowledge one is too many. And again, obviously from a practical standpoint, this story gets my attention because my daughter is a flight attendant. She flies all over the country, and she gets around when she lands at a particular place and she's going to go somewhere, go out to eat or go do something while she has a layover, or she's staying overnight in a city, she takes an Uber. All right. So yeah, then obviously, that this has a personal connection to me, but I'm stepping out of that from just a practical, informative thing about Uber and you making determinations on what, you use to get around. It sounded so much like the problems in the church when it comes, hey, churches will say this. Well, yes, we have sexual assault and these kinds of and sexual misconduct and sexual harassment and sexual abuse of children within the church. However, according to the statistics of those outside of the church, we're doing pretty good. Everyone uses those kinds of excuses. But the problem is your number goes with their number and their number goes with their number, because what you need is the total number of how many sexual assaults and sexual harassment issues are happening in the church, outside the church, in Uber, outside of Uber, and every other walk of life, in every industry, because those total numbers demonstrate the societal problem. And yes, the church wants to say, yes, our numbers may be lower, but that's irrelevant. When divorce began to explode throughout society and divorce rates were going up, the church may have argued, well, we're doing pretty good. And guess what started happening? The divorce rate started rising within the church. Well, why did that happen? And then there were numbers about teenagers. Teen pregnancy at different times have become a major issue. And then the church realized, they have teenagers who are getting pregnant. A societal issue. That's just, we have to acknowledge it. All right, very important that we do this. I think we have to understand it's a societal issue and the church can't ignore it. Okay, I'll go through it again. Well, first, we have to realize it's a societal issue. I guess I'll try to organize it this way. It's a societal issue. Okay, everyone has to acknowledge that. We have to realize that I think part of the problem in society is moral relativism. All right, I think that we have to acknowledge that, and we have to acknowledge that the church is just as vulnerable to these things happening in the church. We can't just pretend that somehow we are immune to all of this stuff. And the church has to address these issues. It's like domestic violence. Domestic violence, you'll hear these stories about a woman being in the church and there's domestic violence and nobody does anything, nobody wants to say anything, and everybody turns their eye. Well, wait a minute. We have to deal with domestic violence as well. This is another reminder that the church lives and operates within the world. And we are touched by it. We are influenced by it. And when I heard this Uber report, it just made me think of the whole story that we were talking about, all the new cases that are going to be coming out with sexual abuse of children in the Roman Catholic Church. And I made it very clear that, hey, yes, it's horrible. It's horrible. People, they need to do investigations. People responsible. Justice needs to be done. We need to pray for the victims. Yes. But I wanted to say it's not just a Catholic issue. It's an issue everywhere. Now, that was one specific sexual crime. The Uber situation may be dealing with different ones, but it's the same issue of sexual assault, sexual misconduct, sexual crime, sexual harassment. All of these kinds of things, they happen everywhere. And Christians need to think differently about them. We need to just, I don't know why we sometimes are. It starts in society and the church sits back and go, well, that's not our problem. That's just that problem. All those lost people. It's all them. We're okay. And the next thing you know, have you seen the divorce rate inside the church? I thought you said it was all them. Wait, have you seen the number of Christian men who struggle with pornography? Yeah, I thought you said it was just them. Wait, have you seen the number of pastors who are struggling with pornography? I thought you said it was just them. Wait, have you seen the amount of adultery happening in the world? I thought you said it was just them. Have you seen the latest numbers about adultery in the church? Wait, go on and 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 on. Whatever is happening. I guarantee you there are a Christian kid sitting somewhere in a youth group either this week or will be on Sunday who's sitting there, hasn't told anyone, but may already be engaged in homosexual behavior and struggling with feelings of homosexuality and doesn't know what to do. And the church is sitting there pretending homosexuality is that problem outside the church. We can't act that way. We can't act that way. In regards to any issue, we have to be more open, honest, and transparent and struggle. Christianity is, we are acknowledging we are sinners and that we need Christ and we are putting our faith in Him. And following Him doesn't mean we're now immune to all struggle and all problems and all societal issues. They become a part of the church. The moral relativism is an important question. Is what's happening in society due to moral relativism? Okay, if that's true, if moral relativism is the leading philosophical problem, what does that lead to in society? I think that's a very important question and conversation to have. But remember, moral relativism outside the church enters into the church. All right, so we have to acknowledge it, and the church has to see these kinds of things. All right, I gave a lot of different points there, and maybe not in the right order, but I'm just trying to share a lot of different thoughts here in regards to this, kind of a disturbing story that, people go get hey, I'm going somewhere, I'm going to take an Uber, and the next thing you know, you have some horrible situation with sexual assault, even cases of rape. That's disturbing. Violence, murder, shootings. What is going on? Now, of course, they compared their numbers versus what's happening in society and versus the number of rides. We don't want to exaggerate it, but that's what everyone does. Hey, our numbers are better than their numbers. But the issue is, wait a minute. On one hand, we have to step back and go, wait, this says something about society. Just patting ourselves on the back about our numbers, we need to look at what's going on because it's going to become a bigger problem with our numbers, if that makes any sense. All right, I'll stop right there. Thank you for listening to this very impromptu news program, but I heard that news report and I thought I would share it because I just see a connection there and maybe you see it as well. All right, thank you for listening. Have a great evening. God bless.